The way America has treated black people, they should be ashamed of themselves, bro. Like, what? And here we are. Y'all want us to fight and die for y'all. Do y'all not know what y'all been doing to us for generations? Just like, your little great pawpaw that's 90 years old, alive and well, that you take pictures with every week. We have people that's that old in our family too, and they done experienced some shit. His war stories overseas, hey nigga, we got war stories at home. Fuck you talking about? It's your boy Online Davo, and we back with another video. Look, we got a video about Xers Speaks. They never had a fair chance. Who could he possibly be talking about? Come on, let's get into the video.
A lot of us can't get ahead, mentally can't get it right, and we're well into our late 30s and 40s and 50s.
Black folks were scared of white people. I grew up not feeling like I was as good as they were. If you hear a tinge of anger in my voice, I'm still mad as hell about that.
Post-slavery, boomers and Gen X probably had it the worst. And sometimes I really be looking at y'all generations like, I honestly don't even know how y'all survived that time period. If you're watching this right now and you're a boomer or Gen X, I want you to leave a comment below of what it was like growing up. Because I feel like y'all have a lot of experiences that don't get talked about enough. Because the way history usually gets explained makes it seem like everything was simple. Slavery ends, then the civil rights movement happens. And then after that, things just slowly started improving. That's the version people like to go with.
I think we're significantly less racist, so you can't blame racism for why these communities are not doing well.
What a clown, bro. Systemic racism does not exist in America. What a bozo.
Really? Could
No,
you not
significantly
blame,
less.
Could you not blame, for example?
Well, let me look. Okay, so in the 1960s, blacks weren't allowed in the National Basketball Association. In the 1960s, the Civil Rights Act hadn't been passed until 1965. The 1960s, blacks were not allowed to go to the same schools as whites. So, like, that's my metric. So we passed the Civil Rights Act in 1965.
Yeah,
Oh, how about this? We had a black president elected twice in 2008 and 2012.
Oh man, so since a black president was elected, we fixed racism,
we
right?
quintupled, no, not, we didn't finish racism, we're significantly less racist.
But when you actually stop and look,
Are we though? Are we? I don't know. I feel like racism is becoming more, covert. You know what I'm saying? It's still a lot of microaggressions, because there's still a lot of bigots in this world, as you can see. Like, I feel like everybody kind of got a reminder of how many people have internalized racism. That's what it is. Y'all may not be out here yelling the ER at people, but y'all still hold those same prejudices that y'all had before,
at the generations that had to live through those times, the situation looks way more complicated than that. Because two groups of black Americans basically got hit from both directions. You got boomers who grew up during the last years of open segregation and had to live through the civil rights era while it was actually happening. Then right behind them, you got Gen X, who technically grew up after those segregation laws were gone, but they walked straight into collapsing cities, the crack epidemic, and one of the biggest prison expansions in American history. So when people debate which generations had it the hardest after slavery, those two generations always come up. Because one generation had to fight the system directly, and the next generation had to live inside the consequences of everything that happened after that fight. And both situations were extremely difficult. So I'm not trying to compare, which one was harder. It's not anything like that. Now let's start with boomers, right? Boomers were born between 1946 and 1964. And a lot of them grew up in a country where segregation was normal. And when we say segregation, we're not talking about
Yes, damn. My dad born 1960. Shit, he a late boomer, and he grew up in Jackson, Mississippi. Oh my God. Whoo. I know he got some crazy shit he done seen.
racism. We're talking about actual laws separating people by race. Separate schools, separate water fountains, separate restaurants, separate neighborhoods. There were literally signs telling black people where they could go and where they were not welcome.
I grew up under Jim Crow. When I was little, we couldn't go to certain places. This personally happened to me at a place called Fairyland Park. But they had one day set aside where black people could attend. So in the neighborhood, they would call it the N-word day. And I know for a fact that my mother wasn't going to allow me to go because she was proud woman. So my brother and his girlfriend swooped me up and took me to the Fairyland Park. People were protesting this park, and people were getting arrested.
So imagine being...
Damn, you can't even get 1 day? Oh my God. You could have nothing, bro. Even 1 day, they trying to fight their hardest. You can't even get that. And when they do give you that day, they gonna call you a slur while they doing it to you. Oh my gosh.
a black kid growing up in that environment. Your parents already dealing with a system that openly treats them like they're nothing. At the same time, you're seeing people push back against that system. Because when people protested against segregation at that time, it was dangerous. Police beating protesters, dogs being released on people, fire hoses being turned on crowds, churches getting bombed, civil rights activists getting killed. There was some crazy stuff going on.
17 years.
17 walking across that bridge?
16 or 17, yeah. In the march.
Selma.
Yeah, when them people throwed all that tear gas on us and when they did what they call Bloody Sunday.
Martin Luther King was assassinated when I was a little...
Living, breathing experienced. Yes, it's in the books, but we gotta remember, people live these lives. You know what I'm saying? This wasn't made up out of nowhere. People actually died for this. Actually died for us to have to be treated equally. You know what I'm saying? And we also gotta remember, people were actively trying to stop them from doing that. You know, there was a subset of people, a certain group of Americans that felt like we should be getting treated equally. You know what I'm saying? And they had never been held accountable for that. Ever. They have never been held accountable. It's always been tension. It's always been tension there. It's just been brewing this whole time. You know what I'm saying? And it all started from that, hey man.
Girl. And I still remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting there playing with my toys, and suddenly I start hearing wailing and hollering coming from outside. My family went out, and then we heard they unalived King. Riots broke out all across the country. Kansas City did not cancel school on the day of Dr. King's funeral, and people became angrier. Because of this, students staged a peaceful walkout. It actually became a riot after the police tear-gassed some children in a church. They also tear-gassed schools as well. I also remember getting tear-gassed. I remember my eyes burning and being scared, but there was no escaping this. There was smoke, fire, tear gas, people running, screaming everywhere.
So a lot of black boomer kids grew up watching adults risk their lives just to vote or walk in certain schools. That wasn't something they were reading about later in life in a textbook. That was the environment that they were growing up in. And on top of that, black schools during segregation were underfunded, which meant black students had less resources, older textbooks, and crowded classrooms compared to white schools. So even basic things like education were unequal from the very beginning. A lot of people today look back at the civil rights movement like it was this clean moment in history where people marched, gave speeches, and the country suddenly changed overnight. But for the people actually living through it, it was much more intense than that. But they don't tell you that part, right? I'm sure it was stressful, it was tense, and it was unpredictable. You had school integration battles happening where black students were entering schools where nobody wanted them there. The teachers were hostile, the students were hostile, entire communities were angry that they were even stepping through the door.
And we are standing up for what we think is right now.
Barbara,
I need it.
you're playing into her hands. Let me speak to him, okay?
In the name of God, how much more are we supposed to take?
Oh my God. In the name of God, how dare you try to have your kids come to my white school? What's wrong with you? In the name of the Lord. Are you out of your mind? Oh my gosh. But I'm trying to tell you, bro. Damn, man. Every single step along the way. Every single step. You know what I'm saying? Nothing in America has ever just flew by peacefully in the sense of progress. Everything has always had somebody trying to stop it, man. You know? That shit crazy.
What? From you people.
I mean, you people. You sound like I'm a dog or something.
As we forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
These people are fucking demonic.
We want freedom! We want freedom! We want freedom!
Oh my God, what an animal. Bro, oh my God, man. This is crazy. This is crazy. This is a real person reacting like this to children. God, come on, man. Come on. And then they have kids. And then they kids have kids. This is what happens when you allow this stuff to just exist. You know what I mean? Damn, man. People are just...
We want freedom!
So imagine being a teenager and walking into a building where the whole school already hates you before you even sit down in class. That's crazy. That was real life for a lot of boomers. And even after laws changed, attitudes didn't just automatically change overnight with them. So boomers grew up in an environment where progress was happening, but resistance was happening at the exact same time. So you had these opposite forces fighting against each other.
What happened to you today?
When I went to school, this was my first day going to school. When I went, the principal told me not to come back anymore to his office.
And that kind of environment puts a...
The principal? Oh my gosh, bro. That's crazy. Treating a kid like that, treating a little girl like that, that is so crazy, bro. Wow. That's what I try to tell you, man. People be acting like they standing for something, but it's like, damn, man. Damn.
A lot of pressure on a generation. Black families were organizing in churches and community groups to support the movement, which meant kids were growing up surrounded by activism and political awareness. So a lot of young people during that era learned early on that social change requires sacrifice and unity. Now, of course, that has some pros to it, but a lot of their childhood was stripped away due to circumstances that was completely out of their control. Then comes Gen X, which was born roughly between 1965 and 1980, right? On paper, things were supposed to be better for them. Legal segregation had already ended. Civil rights protections were in place. And the country was supposed to be moving forward. But the reality of a lot of black Gen X kids growing up in that time was not like that at all. By the late 1970s and 1980s, a lot of American cities were struggling economically. Factories were shutting down. Manufacturing jobs were disappearing. And those jobs were important because they helped working class families maintain stability. So once those jobs disappeared, entire neighborhoods started feeling the impact almost immediately. Income dropping, opportunity.
And we already know, black people are the ones that get dropped off first. I'm gonna keep it real. You know what I'm saying? They get the boot first. So it's like, shit, if everybody hurting, black people definitely hurting. That's just how the economics work. You feel me?
Communities shrinking, and black families trying to figure out how to keep up financially.
When they open up the door, they push you in. So they had followed me all the way around when I was going in, and I had this newspaper. So I was inside, but my arm and hand was on the outside. They almost broke my wrist.
Today, there is almost no local industry in the South Bronx. There are few jobs for the people who live here. 1 out of 3 is unemployed. The per capita income here is 40% of the national average. 1/3 are on welfare.
And when that instability was happening in a lot of communities, another major problem appeared right behind it. You got it, drugs. At the same time, city governments were dealing with budget cuts and declining tax revenue, which meant fewer resources for schools, housing, and public services. So a lot of black communities were facing multiple problems at once. Then we got the crack epidemic. During the 1980s,
fucking Ronald Reagan. Oh my God. That piece of shit. Ronald Reagan, oh my, you know what you did, bro. You know what you did. That's why fucking devil. Demon. He's a demon. And it's so crazy. You hear people talking about Ronald Reagan was a pretty good president, you know. They don't even factor in the shit he did to black people. That's the craziest part. They don't even think about that type of side effect. That shit crazy. We're like an afterthought when it comes to everything he did. Man.
Crack spread through black neighborhoods and had a major impact on our communities.
What do you got there?
All crack bottles.
What do you have there in your other hand?
Looks like a needle top. That shit picked up. Them dangerous.
Addiction increased, families torn apart, violence increased in places that were already struggling economically. But one of the most important moments during that time was how the government responded to all of it. Instead of treating the situation as a public health issue, they just focused heavily on punishment. This is when a war on drugs started growing. Drug laws became super strict. Police presence increased heavily in black neighborhoods. Mandatory minimum sentences meant people could receive very long prison sentences for drug-related crimes. So for a lot of Gen X kids growing up during that time, prison became something that they saw constantly around them. Friends getting arrested, family members going to prison, entire communities feeling like they were under constant surveillance. And
no type of guidance in the home. Dads are in jail. You feel me? Uncles, brothers in jail. You know what I'm saying? The only way you see to make money is to sell drugs. But it's like, shit, if I sell these drugs, I'm gonna get scooped up too. If you're not selling them, you might be taking them. That's gonna fuck up your family too. It's like, but you see, it's always when it comes to black people, it's always war on drugs, just say no. You know what I'm saying? Shit like that, right? But when it's other ethnicities and stuff like that, it's a crisis. We gotta find out what's happening. Why is there so much meth and heroin? What are they doing? Where are they getting it from? It's an outcry. It's so nasty what America has been doing to black people, bro. I ain't gonna lie, it's disgusting. It's honestly disgusting. They should be ashamed. They should be ashamed of themselves. I'm gonna keep it real. The way America has treated black people, they should be ashamed of themselves, bro. Like what? And here we are. Y'all want us to fight and die for y'all. Do y'all not know what y'all been doing to us for generations? Just like your little great pawpaw that's 90 years old, alive and well, that you take pictures with every week. We have people that's that old in our family too, and they done experienced some shit. His war stories overseas, hey nigga, we got war stories at home. Fuck you talking about? And we still gotta live amongst y'all. You see, that's what I'm saying. So when we say acknowledge it, we saying acknowledge it and fight against it and progress it forward. Don't just acknowledge it and say, oh well, that's just how it is. Man, get out of here.
Long prison sentences meant that families were separated for years, sometimes decades, which had lasting effects on households and neighborhoods.
So many people know somebody who they had an aunt or an uncle who was a crackhead, or their parents themselves was a crackhead. And we do not talk about how that really shifted us as a generation.
I don't think people really nowadays, and I think a lot of people that came from that era really don't forget what the we went through and how damaging that is mentally to us. And while a lot of us can't get ahead, mentally can't get it right, and we're well into our late 30s and 40s and 50s.
I'm a 70s baby, 1978 to be exact, but who else was affected by the crack epidemic in the 80s? Raise your hand.
So the impact wasn't just individual, it affected entire community structures. One of the biggest things that defined Gen X era was the rise of mass incarceration. The prison population in the United States increased dramatically during the 1980s and 1990s. And black communities were the ones mainly affected by those policies. It was 100% targeted. Policing increased in neighborhoods. Drug raids became more common. Long sentences for non-violent offenses became normal. Kids growing up seeing police helicopters flying over neighborhoods, hearing sirens regularly, and watching people.
How are you supposed to create a foundation for yourself when your whole life is dysfunction? You know what I'm saying? You got a whole system going against you that's hoping you fail, that's trying to do everything it can do to make you fail. You know how much harder it is to go against that? You know what I'm saying? Because you fighting against the government, you also fighting against society, you feel me? And everything they got going on and how they view you, in their discrimination, their judgment. You got that going. And you got the government helping them. Damn. I'm telling you, bro. Once you call it how you see it, it's clear. It's clear.
People being taken away in handcuffs. At the same time, the media portrayed black neighborhoods through crime stories.
Families here and in other nice neighborhoods have been disintegrating as mothers battle their own addiction to crack. Right now, Gail White is fighting the drug. She's not sure she'll win.
How many other women do you think
are fighting with a drug, say on this hill?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure there's lots of them. I can imagine hundreds, you know. I'm sure hundreds.
As in so many black families, Gail, a single mother, is the linchpin, trying to hold things together.
So Gen X grew up in an environment where their communities were struggling economically, heavily policed, and constantly treated like the problem. That combination had a major impact on how that generation experienced the world. And many young people during that time also became familiar with the criminal justice system much earlier than they should have because of how frequently arrests were happening around them. When you really look at it, Boomers and Gen X were dealing with two different versions of the same struggle. Boomers dealt with legal segregation, civil rights battles, violent racism, school integration fights, etc., etc. Gen X dealt with mass incarceration, drug war policies, economic decline in cities, the crack epidemic, heavy policing, etc., etc. Different environments, but both were extremely difficult. Boomers had to challenge a system that openly treated them as unequal. Gen X had to grow up in a system that pretended equality existed, but still produced very harsh outcomes in many black communities. And that's why those two generations
Ain't like that gotta be crazy, huh? I mean, it's still crazy now, but thinking of as a Gen X, it's like these laws are passing. You know, you're supposed to be progressing as a society, but you can see in your own two eyes that the inequality is still there. You can see that what they telling you on the news isn't matching up with your reality. You know, and then it's like, damn, then you got man. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. Hey, y'all some soldiers. If you're a boomer or a Gen X, comment in this video. Please comment. Tell me your story. Tell me one of your experiences or something, because shout out to y'all, man. If you are alive and well, insane at this point in time, you a soldier, because they were trying to break you. You know what I'm saying? They were trying to break you, and they wanted you to end up in a situation that fit their agenda. You know, so shout out to you for sure.
Are so important to understand when people talk about black history and slavery, because they carry the weight of the most difficult transitions in American history. And that transition came with a lot of pressure that people today always ignore. At the same time, both generations laid the groundwork for many of the social and political conversations that continue today. So even though they went through hell, their experiences shaped the moments and discussions happening in America today. So we really owe them a lot of respect. Personally, I feel like a lot of boomers and Gen X.
And now we got to factor in this too. We got black people that was going through that experience, right? During the crack epidemic and all that, and the civil rights and all that stuff, right? We got black people that's alive that was going through that. We also got people that's alive that was fighting against that. And these people be holding power. These people be in political positions. You feel me? That's why I be saying, like, that bias is still there. Not everybody changed. Not everybody progressed mentally. Not everybody stops being a bigot once they hit 50, 60, 70 years old. You feel me? So it's like, I'm telling you, man, it be there. It be there, but they hide it behind policies and shit like that. But we all know it boils down to racism.
Never really had a fair shot in society to begin with. I'm not saying that none of them came out to be successful, because that's not the truth either. But just think about the environments that they were dealing with. Boomers grew up in a system where laws were stacked against them. And even when laws started changing, opportunities didn't magically change overnight. Housing discrimination was still happening. Banks weren't approving loans in black neighborhoods. And a lot of workspaces were still quietly blocking black people from positions and promotions. So even though the laws were starting to say one thing, the reality people were dealing with on the ground was way different. Now look at Gen X. By the time they came up, the laws had changed, but the economic landscape had already changed too. A lot of the stable jobs that other generations could rely on were disappearing. So while other parts of the country were growing economically, black neighborhoods were dealing with the opposite situation. Less opportunity, less investment, and less opportunity for long-term stability. And when you combine that with aggressive policing, strict drug laws, and a rise of mass incarceration, etc., etc.,
literally spraying other humans with fire hose for protesting. This shit is crazy, bro. I ain't gonna lie. This shit is so crazy. America should be ashamed of themselves. I'm not gonna lie. Shout out Exo Speaks for the video. You did your thing. Shout out all my boomers and Gen Xers, man. Tell me your stories, please. Comment down below. I want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Let me learn something, because the things that these people did and tried to do to y'all, that they still doing today. And then we got to sit here and act like things changed and things are so different. Oh my God, I'm gone. Peace.